This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The initial wave of free agency, it's over, but there's still plenty of team building. There's still some moves to be made, and if you follow this show, if you follow me on Twitter, there's still one guy that, with all due respect, needs to be cut. We'll talk about him, we'll talk about free agency, the draft, and much more on today's show. It's the Hindsight 20. It's the Hindsight 20 podcast. I'm your host, Jerry Mallory. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening to the show. We got a pretty good show scheduled. Now, last show was the frenzy, right? All the guys that we brought in, highlighted by Rick Wagner, highlighted by TJ Lang. So this week has been a little bit more quiet in terms of, these big time acquisitions, but there's still plenty of things to be done, things to be talked about. More rumors than anything in terms of free agency, but we did just now, as I'm recording this show, bring in a defensive tackle. And in fact, he's one that, from an upside standpoint, from a potential standpoint, could be a nice find, a steal, if you will. It's Jordan Hill. No, not the power forward center of the NBA fame that played for the New York Knicks and the LA Lakers. This Jordan Hill is ex of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the thing that you have to like about him is that he fits a need, that three-tech defensive tackle. Now, we're going to spend a ton of time talking about him because, quite frankly, it's an under-the-radar signing. He'll have a chance to maybe, just maybe do something with this team. But he is a guy that fits the bill. All right. He's someone that can be added to the rotation. As far as we know right now, it's a 1-year deal. He's 26 years old. He's a 3rd-round pick of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, not a ton of accolades. There was a lot of potential there, but he's had a ton of injuries. All right. If you look at his injury history, it's just been time after time. He's nicked up, damaged, not able to finish a game, not able to play a complete season. But the talent supposedly is there. He's supposed to be very gifted athletically. He's supposed to be someone that, in terms of an interior pass rusher, was supposed to, he's supposed to be that guy. It just never happened. Still young. It's likely going to be a 1-year deal. Someone that can fight for a roster spot. And again, he feels a need. When you've got A'Shawn Robinson, who is going to be your run stuffer, your zero tech, if you will, you need someone next to him. You need someone that can be an interior pass rush force. That's why I was an advocate of bringing in Nick Fairley. Not a ton of three-tech defensive tackles out there this year. Kawan Short was someone that I was interested in. He re-signed with the Carolina Panthers. And so teams, or not teams, but fans and pundits often linking defensive tackles to the Lions. And to me, it didn't really make sense. The guys they were naming, Dontari Poe, Jonathan Hankins, these guys kind of fit the bill that we want from A'Shawn Robinson at a much higher price tag. I mean, we're hearing Jonathan Hankins wants anywhere from 8 to 10 million annually per year, which is why he probably hasn't signed on with the team yet. So Jordan Hill, we're not going to make a big fuss about it, but he does fit a need. He is a 3-tech, a pass rushing defensive tackle, which is something we need, which is something the Lions have certainly. If you look at their pro day visits, the guys they've scouted, like a Carlos Watkins from Clemson, and then this signing, it shows that, yes, they realize that it's still a need that has to be addressed. I don't think Jordan Hill is that answer. He could be, but it brings me to my next point, though. And I've been an advocate of this time after time. I've said it on Twitter. It's Haloti Ngata. All due respect, a great career, primarily, pretty much all, with the exception of a few seasons here with Detroit, there with the Baltimore Ravens, fine individual by all accounts. I get the leadership. I get this. I get that. But when you look at the fact that we re-signed Kyrie Thornton, you bring in Akeem Spence, who is kind of similar to what you're going to get with A'Shawn Robinson and Haloti Ngata. When you factor in the fact of A'Shawn Robinson should be your starter this year, and then you bring in this signing of Jordan Hill, it was a thin position, right? At the beginning of the year, everyone's saying, well, we can't cut Haloti Ngata. We've only got 2 defensive tackles on the roster, because Steph Charles and Tyron Walker and this and that guy were all free agents. All of them were, available to go elsewhere. So we had 2 defensive tackles. It was too thin of a position. If you cut Haloti Ngata, well, you have 1 defensive tackle on your roster. That's not the case anymore. Re-signing Kyrie Thornton, that makes it 2, along with A'Shawn Robinson. Signing Akeem Spence, that makes it 3, alongside A'Shawn Robinson. And then you have this signing of Jordan Hill. That makes it 4 along A'Shawn Robinson. You add to the fact that there is a potential to bring in a guy or 2 in free agency, potentially June 1st cuts, but more importantly, the NFL draft. We've been looking at this guy and that guy, like Carlos Watkins, namely. It makes me feel as though Haloti Ngata is now more expendable. You have 4 guys other than him already under contract, and you still have the NFL draft, and you still have June 1st cuts. There will be roster moves to be made. We've got 5 defensive tackles at this point of the year. It's no longer a thin position. Haloti Ngata needs to go. Okay. By all accounts, we have roughly $8 million in cap space. By releasing him, that jumps it up to about $13 million. And it brings me to my next point, because there's still some valuable players that we can look at. We know the positions that we're thin at. And I'm not saying defensive tackle is a strength now, because you got A'Shawn Robinson, who looked decent in his first year, but we'll see what happens. Look at Quandre Diggs, a guy that had a really solid rookie year, and that second year just so we still don't know what we have with A'Shawn. You need to see a year or 2, sometimes 3, to solidify what you've got from a guy. Kyrie Thornton, he's looked good. He's looked, in flashes. Okay. Akeem Spence, Jordan Hill. I'm not saying we're set at defensive tackle. However, there are positions that are much weaker. Linebacker, okay? And there's a couple of guys that are still out there. Zach Brown. And it's weird. We haven't really been linked to any linebackers other than, the signing of Paul Warlow. Zach Brown, who had a Pro Bowl year. He's got the speed. We showed interest in him before. So you would think, he's someone that we would be interested in this year. It seems like we have even more a need at linebacker, because, last year you're kind of hoping Levy would be ready and counting on him. Well, now we know it's not an option. He's no longer on the team. And so if we're projecting our linebacking core right now, it's Paul Warlow, maybe in the middle, along with Tahir Whitehead, and then Antoine Williams. That does not ring confidence. So, the cutting of Haloti Ngata gives you an extra $5 million that can be allocated to filling more pressing needs. There are still some valuable guys available in free agency. The linebacker position is the only spot, but naming linebackers, you've got Kevin Minter, middle linebacker, who looked pretty good with San Francisco last year. Now, his run defense it's improved. The year before, it was even worse. Last year, it got a lot better. So, and I apologize, he's not of San Francisco. I'm thinking of Gerald Hodges. Kevin Minter is actually someone who is with the Arizona Cardinals. And so he's available. Actually, he was available. I didn't realize this. Just yesterday, he signed with the Bengals. So you got to scratch him off the list. The linebacking situation is getting thinner and thinner. Zach Brown still available. See, this is the benefit when you're kind of checking on players and you're doing your thing. It's always good to be updated, because I'm following Twitter. I'm following signings, especially guys that I'm really interested in. But sometimes a guy slips through the cracks. So Kevin Minter is no longer an option. Gerald Hodges, he's someone that he was someone that would be interesting to see. He's someone that was from the 49ers, had a decent year there with those guys. But I don't know, man. He's someone that, okay, I like to bring him in. He'd be an upgrade, but Zach Brown is the guy I want. And that's the common theme, everyone on Lions Twitter. All right. Zach Brown is the guy we want. Now, will it come to fruition? Well, we'll have to wait and see. At this point, all we know is that he's visited teams like the Raiders and he visited the Miami Dolphins, but we haven't had any indication that there has been interest between him and the Lions. There was interest last year, though, so there's the link. But linebacker isn't the only spot in which we could use an upgrade on the defensive line, yet and still defensive end is something that we could address. Chris Long, he's someone that He said himself, close to signing with the Lions last year, but went ahead and got with the New England Patriots. Probably a good move for him, getting that ring. But still a little bit left in the tank. He feels as though he can provide something. And when you've got Cornelius Washington and Chris Long, it's good depth. I'd be comfortable with Chris Long starting if we don't draft the guy opposite Ziggy Ansah, in the early rounds. And so that's a potential need. There are still some needs on offense. I'm still of the opinion that we need, for instance, the third string quarterback being a veteran. I had this debate with my buddies over there at Pride Detroit on the quarterback situation. There was an article talking about Colin Kaepernick being our backup quarterback. Now, I'm not going to spend any time on that. It's just no. I can give you all the reasons, but I'm not going to bore you with it. But it got me to thinking, what should we do with that third quarterback spot? You've got Jake Rudock, who's going to be your backup. Zero action at the NFL level. Now, Bob Quinn says, well, you always want to draft a quarterback. Every year it's a good strategy, if you address quarterback each and every year, which makes some people believe that we'll look in the later rounds, maybe at like a Josh Dobbs as our third string quarterback. I don't necessarily agree with that because, if you're building this team and, opinions of how good we will or won't be, it varies. Now, if Stafford goes down, we are in bad shape no matter who is going to be under center in terms of the replacement. But if something happens and Stafford isn't able to play, don't want that to happen. I'd feel more comfortable with Jake Rudock and a guy that's actually threw a pass before being behind him. You draft a guy, he's your third string. The two guys behind you have zero NFL experience. And I'm just not cool with that. So for me, a veteran quarterback for the third string is what I want. If you draft a guy, maybe it's late rounds and he could be on your practice squad. There are other needs on offense. I feel as though tight end at this point with the signing of Darren Fells, I think we're good. I believe Bob Quinn, if you look at some of the tight ends they've been looking at, they're putting a succession plan in place for Eric Ebron. We're going to talk about Ebron in just a second. Depending on how he does, it looks like he's going to be filling that Anquan Boldin role. That was a critical role, okay? Anquan Boldin, with the touchdowns he caught, with the third downs he completed, you got to be sure-handed, and that's not something Eric Ebron's been known for. But if you look at what Bob Quinn has been doing, a succession plan for Eric Ebron, maybe it's something they're thinking about. So that could potentially be a signing, maybe a Jared Cook or, whoever. So it's something that we have to keep in mind. And as I say that, I got to look and see, did Jared Cook sign with someone? I kind of think he was maybe linked to the Minnesota Vikings. I tell you what, man, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I know this and that. Yeah, he actually signed with the Raiders a couple of days ago. So I apologize if I name a guy and he's been off the board, a lot of moving parts. So the point remains, though, money that you get from cutting Haloti Ngata can be used in other places. Running back. I know we've been linked to Adrian Peterson. There have been differing opinions, primarily negative, on bringing him in. We have to have somebody behind Amir Abdullah, I'll say that, whether it's the draft or whether we're bringing in a guy, because I feel as though after him, Zach Zenner, he looked good toward the stretch, toward the end of the year, that stretch, but not doing cartwheels on Zach Zenner being your number 2 ball carrier. Dwayne Washington just was completely disappointing. He had those flashes in preseason, and we just did not see it after that. So I'm not counting on him for that. And Theo Reddick, I liked him being used as that receiver, as that option. Him carrying the ball a ton is not my forte. I'd rather they not do that. So it's either draft a guy behind Amir or sign a guy. You don't have to like Adrian Peterson. I get all the reasons why. I feel as though personally, if he's coming in cheap, I'm giving this guy a chance. I know about fit and, him being an eye back and this and that and us running out of shotgun. I want a guy behind Amir Abdullah. I'd favor, like a LeGarrette Blount or Doug Martin, but I would like a veteran running back. We saw what happened last year. When Amir got hurt, it really hurt us. We were relying on Theo Reddick to run the ball. And Zach Zenner and Dwayne Washington, it was a mess. And some believe that Amir Abdullah isn't a guy that can be that full workload running back. Now, I disagree. I think he can carry the ball 15 times a game, which is kind of about the average of what, the major number 1 running backs get. Some people think he can only get the ball 8 to 12 times. I don't agree, but, there's still 10 carries to go around. And I'd rather give a good chunk of them to a veteran unless we draft a guy that we feel as though can fill that role. I don't think we have a number 2 running back on our team right now. So again, you cut Nada, perhaps you can bring in LeGarrette Blount or Doug Martin, Adrian Peterson. What about number 3 receiver? This is still a concern, a need. We talked to Andre Holmes. Kamar Aiken potentially is someone that many people have talked about being a fit for the Lions. So there's still some moves to be made. We have a little bit of money, and at this point, you've got 4 defensive tackles. If you cut Haloti Ngata, you've got several guys that kind of fill his need. I feel like Akeem Spence is an adequate backup to A'Shawn Robinson. I feel like Haloti Ngata at this point is kind of a backup to A'Shawn Robinson, so it's redundant. Go ahead, make the move. I get the veteran leadership and all of those things. You gain $5 million by cutting him. You gain about another $5 million after June 1st with DeAndre Levy. This also helps you with your negotiations with Matthew Stafford. We know the extension is coming. And as June 1st comes, there will be some cuts. There will be some roster moves where there will be veterans available. Remember, we signed Anquan Bolden late in the offseason. So having that flexibility is big, especially now that position is not so thin. No disrespect to the guy, but I'm all for making that move. So, just at this point, of course, the initial wave of free agency is gone, but there's still some things that can be done. There's still some roster moves that can be made. I just want to throw out some names, throw out some needs, and mention, how we can facilitate a few of those things happening a little bit sooner. We're going to go ahead and take our halftime break. When we come back, let's get a little bit more into the draft. Let's do a fan speak live on air like we always do. And I don't think I've got a chance to talk about the uniforms much. We'll talk about that a little bit and much more. So stay right here as we'll continue on the Hindsight 20 podcast. Jerry Mallory here for the Hindsight 20 podcast. If you want your ad to be placed on our show, you want to link up with the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, it's simple. Leave us an email, hindsight20podcast@gmail.com. All right, we're back on the Hindsight 20 podcast. I want to thank each and every one of you for sticking around a little bit longer. One final note about free agency before we move on into this last half, just really focusing on the draft, was Morris Claiborne. Signed a 1-year, $5 million deal with the Jets. I found that interesting. The deal is similar to what DJ Hayden just got. Now, both of them highly touted out of college, especially Claiborne, but Hayden as well. Both disappointing. So they're kind of on this 1-year show me deal, right? Kind of see what they can do, what they can bring to the table. The difference, though, is Claiborne really put things together last year. Statistically speaking, he had one of his better years. Some even saying he was close to a shutdown corner. Now, I'm not buying into that, but if you're comparing DJ Hayden to Claiborne, both disappointing, but last year, it seems as though Claiborne kind of took that leap forward. Definitely looked better than Hayden did or ever has. So it's just interesting. I don't know if it's a scheme thing, if there was a lack of interest or what. Both of them getting similar deals. You think that Claiborne might be a little bit better of an option. It'll be interesting to see, though, because we know that Hayden has the potential. A lot of these signings that we've made, it's like, these guys are good. We sign them to a 1-year deal, kind of see what happens. The potential is there. Cornelius Washington, the athletic measurables are there. Hayden, the success in college, the measurables are there. Jordan Hill, again, all of these guys kind of possessing these talents. And Washington wasn't a 1-year deal, but it's a short-term, low-money contract. I like it. The chances of all of them hitting are low, but the chances of 1 or 2 of them, these shorter deals, even Paul Warlow, turning things around and looking good, I think it's a smart move by Bob Quinn and company. So on to the draft. The Lions today are in Toledo. There's a couple of guys that may interest them for the Toledo Pro Day. You got tight end Michael Roberts, who is big. He's got some good hands. To me, he looks like an upgraded Brandon Pettigrew. Pettigrew just never really lived up to that first round hype. He had a couple of decent years. This guy is kind of similar, very physical, good blocker with good hands. He should be available probably 4th, 5th round-ish. We'll see what FanSpeak has to say. We're going to do 4 rounds today. As you know, each week we've been doing a FanSpeak. I did just 1 round the last 3 episodes this week. Now we're going to do 4 rounds right here live. So essentially, when I do it, it's not guessing what the Lions would do. It's Jerry Mallory is the GM of the Detroit Lions. And with the picks being made by the fan speak generator, who's ever on the board, I'm picking based on who I think will help the Lions the most. We're going to do 4 rounds. So Michael Roberts might be available. Will I pick him? But we'll have to see. We always talk about who's available. I'll give you the options and we'll go from there. Now, Kareem Hunt, another guy, running back, probably going to have to nab him day 2, early, second round, more so than third. It just really depends on what the Lions want to do with that. So, the draft it'll be here before you know it, guys. All right. It's right around the corner. A month and some change away. I know I'm looking forward to it. So, the boys at Pride Detroit, Kentley Plate specifically did a conglomerate of different draft picks and kind of who the Lions have been mocked to get. And, Taco Charlton is the leader in the clubhouse, and Jerry Mallory is not a fan. I don't think Taco Charlton really fits what we want to do. I think his lack of speed, and I know, people are saying, well, he'll go ahead and be that closed in, he can set the edge, and he can be good against the run. And I know about the positives, but the negatives worry me. They're worrisome. They bother me. The fact that he shows up to camp out of shape, the reasons why he looks good at the end of the year is because now he's getting into shape. So that work ethic, it bothers me. That 4.9, I know the 40 is not the end-all be-all. It is a litmus test. It's not the end-all be-all, though. That 4.9 bothers me. And I picture Aaron Rodgers running wild. I picture, Russell Wilson running wild. The lack of speed on that offensive line has been an issue. And I look at the work ethic of Taco Charlton. I look at some of those type of issues in terms of speed. I think he might be better suited as a 3-4 guy personally, but there's a lot of steam with Taco Charlton being linked to the Detroit Lions. Let's take a look at a few mocks. I went ahead and did 3 of them. We'll start with NFL.com and Chad Reuter. You guys will be able to see my mock draft. I'm going to do a 2.0 coming out soon. Last time I did it, I had the Lions picking Cam Robinson. That was because we did not yet know what was going to happen at the tackle position. So we've had free agency. We've had the combine. So my mock draft coming out today, maybe later, if not early tomorrow, is going to have some changes. So I'm not going to give you all of the guys in his mock draft. We'll just go straight to the Lions. He's got Taco Charlton, surprise, surprise, going to the Lions. Now, my issue with that is some of the other available players. Now, I'm looking at Jordan Willis, defensive end, Kansas State. I'd probably rather have him over Taco Charlton. Takarius McKinley, defensive end, UCLA. I'd probably rather have him over Taco Charlton. Number 22, I definitely pick over Taco Charlton. It's linebacker from Temple, Hassan Reddick. I mean, the man crush I have on him is profound. And I'm not alone. The whole Lions Twitter, pretty much, love fest, man crush, Hassan Reddick. I've been hearing comparisons to Bruce Irvin. I've been hearing comparisons to Dante Hightower. I like to compare him to Julian Peterson. So he's available. He gets picked up right after Taco at number 22 to the Miami Dolphins. So there you have it. Now, these next 2 mock drafts are speaking on a theme I'm not necessarily crazy about. Let's go to NFLDraftGeek.com. We're going to have NFLDraftGeek.com, the man that runs the show over there, Nolan Vassan. We're going to try to get him on next show. If we don't have him on next show, we'll have him on very soon. A friend of the podcast, we'll get him to talk about some of these picks. Now, he's not the curator of this mock that I'm looking at here. Looks like he's got Justin Miller doing this one. Scroll down to number 21, and it is the Lions picking up Gareon Conley, cornerback, Ohio State. He says, while the team brought in DJ Hayden, there is no guarantee he will stay healthy or ever reach his potential. I agree. I'll give my thoughts on the position that he picked after I give you WalterFootball.com's mock draft. And this one is by Charlie Campbell. Walter does a draft. Charlie Campbell does a draft. So at pick number 21, he's got the Lions picking Jalen Tease Tabor. He says the Lions could use a third corner to go with Darius Slay and Nevin Lawson. And then he goes on to talk about Tabor with the 33 tackles, 4 interceptions, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we know that Tease Tabor's combine was a little less than impressive, which is why he'll probably be available at 21 as opposed to going top 15 like many thought he would. I'm not a fan of a cornerback being picked in the first round this year for the Lions for several reasons. Number one, I do feel as though with the signing of DJ Hayden, with another year and hopefully more health from Quandre Diggs, with another year, remember Nevin Lawson is still young, and of course Darius Slay, I don't feel as though cornerback is as much of a need. I feel like the cornerback position it will be solid. It's going to be a battle. Hayden can play the inside. He can play the outside. He's going to be challenging both Quandre and Nevin for either one of their spots. And so you got to love that potential. Number two, I do feel as though, Nevin Lawson had a solid year. And with an improved pass rush, improved linebacking play, that will be even more evident. Number three, this is a very deep draft with cornerbacks. I feel as though a guy you can get at 21, let's say that Tease Tabor or Gary Connolly, you can get a guy in the second round that would be almost as good. I've seen Kevin King lasting into the second round. Jordan Lewis. There's several players that I feel as though with the depth of that position this year, you can wait till round 2 or round 3 and get a guy. Sidney Jones, he's an interesting guy. Now that Achilles is scary. All right, you look no further than the Detroit Lions and what we thought we were going to get from Mikael LaShore. Now, we know there were other issues. There was the weed, but training camp, always you have these stories. Okay, I get it, but, people were comparing him to Steven Jackson, and then he tore that Achilles, and he just never really looked the same. I loved him out of college. I loved him so much. I was so happy that we picked him. But that Achilles can be interesting. But if Sidney Jones is sitting there in the third round, if he can recover, you get in the first round talent. There's a lot of guys. Adoree Jackson might be available in the second round. Akella Witherspoon from Colorado, a guy I really like. There's a lot of Corn Elder, not as crazy about him. Howard Wilson from Houston, I like him. So there's names and players that I think, talent-wise, those guys aren't that far off from Tease Tabor. All right? So I'd rather go in a different direction in the first round. And I'll just leave it at that. Now, let's go ahead and do our fan speak. This is always fun. You go to fanspeak.com and they have a lot of options, which I like. You can use their drafting process. You can use Walter Football, NFL. It's just a number of things you can do. So I went ahead, I'm logged on. I'm going with the difficult setting. I'm going with their draft. And here we go. We've got pick number 21. And I'll click start and let's see what happens. So the draft is going on. Myles Garrett goes number 1 to Cleveland. No surprise. I'm just looking. No surprises so far. Jonathan Allen lasting to 11. Now that would be a guy, if he's there at 11, if you want to get creative and try to move down without sacrificing too much. Solomon Thomas lasting to 15. I would in a heartbeat trade down 6 spots. What do you want to do? What can we give you, Indianapolis Colts, to get him? Now that's a surprise that he fell that far. Gary and Connolly going 18, 19 is David Joku, whatever. And then 20 is Cam Robinson. So here we are. And there are some good names available, man. Right off the bat, you've got Derek Barnett, Taco Charlton, Hassan Reddick, Tack McKinley, Zach Cunningham. All right, this is what I'm going to do this time because every time we've done these, I pretty much Hassan Reddick. So I'll give you my second choice because if all these guys are available, I really have to think long and hard though because I like Derek Barnett a lot. I know the measurables didn't look good, but the talent is undeniable. What he did there at Tennessee, double-digit sacks, all 3 years he was there, and then it comes out that the combine was bad, but he was as sick as a dog. So, he probably is going to be measurable-wise a little bit better than what he did. So I'd probably still pick Hassan Reddick because of the man crush, but my second choice would be Derek Barnett. I got to start giving you some other names. I just can't say Hassan Reddick every time when I do these because he might not be available. So I'm just trying to give you a feel of some other guys I may be interested in. So with that being said, Hassan Reddick would be my choice, but for the sake of this one, my 1A, let's say for whatever reason at pick number 20 instead of, Denver, instead of them picking Cam Robinson, they picked Hassan. That being the case, I'm going to go ahead and pick Derek Barnett. I do believe that the tape shows that he's much better than the measurables. People are talking about his height, they're talking about his weight, and they're talking about the measurables. But I'm looking at 10 plus sacks as a freshman, 10 plus sacks as a sophomore, 10 plus sacks as a junior. I would love to bring a guy like this in and pair him up next to Ziggy Ansah. So we're going on to the second round. The picks are flying in. We're getting closer to my pick, and we still got some decent guys available. So we got to wait and see what's going to happen here. Derek Rivers still floating around. Oh, he just went off the board. That would have been a nice guy to get, especially, if we did a 1-2 combo of like Hassan Reddick and then Derek Rivers, who the Lions have shown some interest in, now that would be pretty sweet. So here we are. We've got some choices to make. And man, there's some good names here. I got to make some decisions. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Hassan Reddick was picked before we had a chance. So Derek Barnett is our guy. He's our first round pick. So Jordan Willis and Terrell Basham or whatever, they're really good players. They're available, but they're on the edge. And that being said, we just drafted a guy on the edge, so it's no need. Man, these names, and this really shows you how deep this draft is, because, all of these guys might not be available, but there's a good chance a good chunk of these players, these talented guys, could be there. You're looking at Tankersley, the cornerback from Clemson, Jordan Willis from Kansas State, Caleb Brantley from Florida, Bucky Hodges, Tre'Davious White, cornerback from LSU, Kevin King, cornerback from Washington, Tease Tabor still available, Adoree Jackson, Carlos Watkins, Justin Evans. I mean, these are some really good names. Like I said, we just picked up Derek Barnett, so we're going to eliminate Willis and Basham from our consideration. And so now what do? I'm going to take a gamble, because even though these cornerbacks, they look very intriguing, okay? Tankersley, Adoree Jackson, I really don't want to do this. I'm going to actually look and see what cornerbacks are available overall. So Jordan Lewis, if I go further down, Rasul Douglas, Othello Witherspoon, Sidney Jones, he dropped so far. I'm going to take a chance. There's some pretty good guys, and I'm rating these guys similar. Now, if one of these cornerbacks was just far and away better than, say, a Caleb Brantley or a Carlos Watkins, then fine. But I think Caleb Brantley didn't test so good, but I like the talent. Man, this is tough. Kevin King, there's some pretty good guys. I'm going to go ahead with my second round pick. The Detroit Lions select Caleb Brantley out of Florida. He has the potential to be that 3-tech that the Lions sorely need. I feel a little bit more comfortable at the cornerback position than I do up front. Remember, if I'm GM, Haloti Ngata's already gone. And so the potential of Caleb Brantley alongside, this was a guy at one point you were considering for the first round. So the potential of Caleb Brantley alongside A'Shawn Robinson, that was too intriguing to pass up. Now, hopefully, there's still some decent linebackers and cornerbacks in the third round. So we're about to start the third round up, and let's see who's available. Adoree Jackson just went. He actually didn't get picked to the third round early on. You've got Cooper Kupp. This was someone that people said, Cooper Kupp, the cup runneth over. Eastern Washington receiver. He was someone that a lot of people felt as though the Lions could really use in that Anquan Bolden role. Tano Pasagnan, or whatever you want to call him. He's someone I really like. I really, really like. And now I'm here, and he's available. Rasul Douglas still available. Othello Witherspoon still available. See, I'm glad I waited. So much so, I got my defensive lineman on the edge, in the interior, and now I still pick up a guy I really like, cornerback, Othello Witherspoon from Colorado. This is panning out really well. In my alternate universe, if I went ahead and picked up Hassan Reddick as a linebacker, I could have matched that with Caleb in the second round and Tano Pasagnan even. I still would have got a guy on the edge I really like, but I didn't. Othello Witherspoon, I really like him. I'm liking this draft so far, man. I'm looking at Derek Barnett, Caleb Brantley, Othello Witherspoon. I know I'm saying his name. Okello? I know it's not Othello. I'm sorry. I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. Okello? I think it's Okello. I don't know. You know who I'm talking about. Super talented Colorado cornerback. And so here we go with the fourth round. This is our last pick. We got some teams trying to make trades with me. We're not doing trades. I don't want to confuse you too much. Let's see who's available. Let's start this round. You've got a Darbo from Michigan just going off the board, but there's some pretty good guys still. Marcus May, I like him a lot. Safety out of Florida, showed some range. Remember, Glover Quinn's a free agent. At the end of this year, we may have to address the safety position. Marcus May still there. All right, my pick is it's time for me to pick. I'm looking to see who's available, and I'm going to make the wise choice here. Some names that stand out: Brian Hill, running back from Wyoming; Isaiah Ford from Virginia Tech; Malachi Dupree, wide receiver from LSU; Adam Shaheen, tight end from Ashland, a guy that the Lions have showed some interest in; Michael Roberts, tight end from Toledo. I'm making some deliberations here. It's not easy. I'm liking these two tight ends. I like Keontae Davis as well from Chattanooga off the edge. I'm getting a little greedy. I know I already picked up a guy on the edge, but sometimes if you like a guy enough, you make the move. It comes down to Shaheen, and it comes down to Michael Roberts. Now, Shaheen, as big as he is really more so known for his athleticism, his speed, and his blocking needs some work. But he's more athletically gifted than Michael Roberts. Michael Roberts is more of a complete package with the blocking. I feel as though the size and strength that Shaheen has, with the right coaching and technique, he could be someone that could be a force blocking. The tools are there. He has to put it together. With the 4th round pick, the 21st pick in the 4th round, Detroit Lions select Adam Shaheen, tight end from Ashland. This was fun, guys. You can go to FanSpeak and have some fun yourself. You go on there and, you wait to see what happens. You pick your pick. And of course, you don't know how the draft is going to fall, but it's fun to play around with different scenarios and situations. It gets you familiar with different players as well. And so I definitely enjoy doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got another show in the books. This was fun. Remember, you don't have to just wait for the Mondays to get my takes. I'm on Twitter giving my Lions takes every single day at Jerry Mallory NFL. I've got a video lined up this week for Pride Detroit. You can see me on there. PrideDetroit.com, man. It's the best, all right? Period, point blank, in terms of covering the Lions. Don't just check it out when I do my video. Those guys are working hard each and every day. Give them a listen. And the whole crew, Detroit Sports Podcast Network, doing big things. Check out the whole network. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. And until next Monday, I'm out of here. This has been Jerry Mallory for Detroit Sports Podcast Network and the Hindsight 20 Podcast.
I'm the biggest hypocrite in 2015. Once I finish this, witnesses will convey